Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 7 of small video tips to make a big difference. I am your host and fearless leader, Renée Marino here. And today we are going to talk about knowing what you are talking about when you get on video. Sounds simple, right? Know what you're talking about when you're getting on video. And that is super, super important. And actually something that many of us overlook a little bit. We'll say, oh, I know my topic. Like, I know the topic that I'm going to talk about, so I'm good. And then it stops there. Before I go on, tell me where you're tuning in from. Blow up the chat box. Let me know where you are, what time it is right now. I love to see who is with me on my videos. Happy Tuesday. Make sure to hydrate. My mantra for the day today is to lead with love. Lead with love. In everything that I do, I want to lead with love because that's who we are at our core, right? So maybe you'd like to adopt that as well. I think it's really important to always come from that core part of yourself, which is love for all of us. So today, Tuesday, is all about leading with love. Okay. Knowing what we are talking about when we get on video. Whether it is a live video or a standard video or maybe even just a Zoom video. It is all the same. The principles are all the same. It's super, super critical to know what you're talking about. What that means is take the time beforehand, take the time to jot down some notes, really hone in on what the message is that you're wanting to share. Even if it's a topic that you know super well, that you say to yourself, oh, I can talk about this anywhere, anytime, great. Still, jot down some notes. Sounds simple, right? It is. Jot down those notes, know what you're talking about and why you're talking about it. And this really goes for live videos, which sometimes can be on the fly. I love doing live videos. Sometimes I just hop on, but even when I hop on, I still have an idea of what I want to talk about and why. It's like in life. It's like our goals. Knowing our why is so important. It's most important. Knowing why you do what you do. Knowing why you are with the person that you're with. Know your why. And the same principle goes for when you go to speak on video. Know what you're talking about. Great to see you. Where are you tuning in from? This is really, really important, and I want you guys to remember this. If you have to take some time beforehand to jot down the notes, do so. Because it's very easy for the camera to go on and then our mind to go blank. Right? Who has that happened to? It's happened to me. And when your mind goes blank, you can all of a sudden forget everything that you were going to say. And then you turn the camera off and you're like, oh my gosh, this is something that I've talked about my whole life. How did I forget? But that's where the practice comes in with getting on video more often. Because it can be jarring. If video is not comfortable for you, it can be jarring the first couple times that you tune on and you're staring at yourself and you're like, this is weird. I'm talking to a screen. What's happening? That's why we want to know what we're talking about. Take those notes. Jot down notes. and be really clear. Be as specific as you can. Hello, 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 everybody. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Be really clear for yourself, because again, when that video turns on, sometimes it can be a different shift for you, and you can all of a sudden feel like, what just happened? And that's normal. It's normal, because I want to remind you of a really, really important fact here. None of us come out of the womb knowing how to get on video with confidence. None of us. This isn't natural, right? We learned how to talk to people in person, but we were never taught how to speak to a camera or speak to a screen. So of course it's going to feel weird and unfamiliar and uncomfortable. So let yourself off the hook there. Stop beating yourself up for that. The way to combat that is to know what you're talking about. We have Hamilton, Ontario in the house, South Florida in the house. If this makes sense, I want you to write "make sense" in the chat box. Make sense, baby. A lot of these tips that I share, the reason I call them small video tips to make a big difference is because they really are small shifts. And a lot of these things, you might say, oh, I know, Renee, I already know. There's a difference between knowing and doing, right? We all know a lot of things. We all know that French fries eaten every day probably aren't the healthiest, but sometimes you do it, right? So knowing and acting upon what you know are two different things. So I'm here to shine a light on these things that sometimes are easily overlooked. Makes sense. Makes sense. I love it. Once you jot everything down, then you want to simplify. If you want, you can write paragraphs. Paragraphs, paragraphs, paragraphs. Make sure to stay tuned on, by the way, till the end, because we have some things to chat about. We want to then tighten it up, because when we go to get on video and we are talking about the said subject, we don't want to have our notes be a jumbled mess, right? So you want to make it as clear as possible. So use as minimal words as possible. And it's that easy. It is that easy. The simpler, the better. It's just like with everything in life. The simpler, the better. So start out, think of it like a person who writes a book. I wrote my book, and I had a first draft, a second draft, a third draft. And the first draft was way more jumbled with a lot of words and a lot of things going on versus the third draft, right? Things get tightened up. You simplify. You use less words to have more meaning. Less words, more impact. And it's the same when you make your notes for going on video. And as I said, the same principle goes for when you are doing a live video. Even if you're doing a video on the fly, like I love to do, still take some notes first. Before anything else, take those notes and then look it over and say, okay, what do I want to talk about? What are the major points that I want to hit? And on those major points, like circle them, right? And then get the next piece of paper, and then you write just those main points that you want to talk about. And then you can do that again and narrow it down to 2 or 3 words, because that's super helpful. Because the less that you have to look to when your mind has gone blank, the better. And what I use always and forever, Post-its. Because these babies are easy. They can stick anywhere. And you can put them right next to your eye. Right next to where your eye has to go when it's looking at the lens. All right? If this feels good, I want you to write "feels good" in the chat box. We got to know what we're talking about. It's super, super important. And how many times have you seen someone go on video and you could tell there wasn't any preparation because it's really like they're searching for what they even want to talk about. Not that they've flubbed a word here or there, but like they're actually trying to figure out what they're talking about. Feels good. You're right. Feel awesome. Yes, I'm glad you're with me. Woo! And remember, all of these tips that I'm sharing, they can be implemented now, today. You can do a live video right after this and apply this and see how it works. I would love for you to do that. That's how we start to implement. That's how we create momentum. So do it, implement it, and come on back and tell us in the group how it went.